Hi, this is David Allen Grier, podcasting for the Daily Crowdsource. Today I'm podcasting just a month away from the Crowd Conference 2011, and so I thought I would address this podcast to that upcoming conference and to the needs of the growing crowd industry. If you've not been following the news of the Crowd Conference, it's coming up on November 2nd in San Francisco. I've put the URL up there for you to take a look at, http:/crowdconf.com, so you can get further information and think if it's a place you want to go. The reason I'd like to talk about it is that the industry has been maturing very rapidly in the past year. We've seen a lot of growth, a lot of success, a few setbacks, and a number of ideas that the industry as a whole needs to consider. In this process, CrowdConf provides a wonderful meeting place. It's a great opportunity. It's a good chance to get together and see other people who are working on similar issues and similar problems. But it's a private conference. It's not an industry association. Now, I need to say private conferences are often very good ideas. The computing industry, the IT industry, these were built on private conferences. Things like Share, Cube, Usenix. All of them were important private conferences that helped to build the industry. They were all built on the idea that out there amongst the users of new technology, of machines, of software, there was a lot of excess talent and excess energy that could be brought and applied to the whole. They helped build a user stake in particular processes or products. They built the software industry out of whole cloth. And they also helped build a strong customer base for the individual organizations, the companies, that were hosting these private conferences. However, private conferences are not the same thing as industry conferences, and none of them are the same as an industry association. Basic idea is that an industry association is open to all, and that it's run by all. At some level, it's a democratically organized group, although it's usually the board that is democratically organized. The industry association will be run by a board that is voted on by the members of the association. The actual running of the group, then, is usually given to an executive secretary who's in charge, who handles day-to-day affairs. Under this association, there are volunteer committees, members of the various companies that belong to the association, who help deal with the difficult issues that the association needs to face. It serves as an industry news source, as a place people can share information like best practices and other things that they know will be appreciated and understood and respected as part of the industry as a whole. And finally, they often do hold an annual conference, a place for the industry to get together to talk about problems. As I've said, Crowd Conference right now is serving in that role, but as we move along, we're going to need to consider something more universal and something more representative of the whole. The big benefits are many of having an industry association. The first one is that they codify best practices. And if you've been following the daily Crowdsource and a lot of the discussion on the web, you will see that we have been laying some preliminary foundation for that work. The first thing you need is a taxonomy, something that divides the industry into groups that make sense for collecting best practices. And as I've said in other podcasts like these, the taxonomy that works best for these are those that identify common practices, common procedures, common ways of treating problems, even though the problems themselves might be quite different. Another thing the industry association does that's very important to me, and I think should be very important to the industry, is establishing the ethics of the field. Now, before you get your back up, the key thing to note is the ethics are the rules that establish membership. We often confuse them with morals, with an absolute sense of right and wrong. And while ethics do help define and identify good behavior, they are really the things that say, if you do this, you're part of the group. You're part of the association. This is what we believe. Right now, the key issue, the key part of the ethics that need to be defined are the Crowdsource Workers' Bill of Rights. I think that's important to get done quickly so that as the industry grows and matures, The members of it, the groups that are building this industry, can point to it and say, this is what we believe. This is our established way of treating workers, and this is how we believe they should be treated. Doing that work now, even in a most modest form, even if it's done in a basic way that you'd like to improve and develop later, will prevent a lot of problem in the future as the press and banks and others start to identify firms doing what they believe to be crowdsource work and is in fact work that none of you would like to be associated with. There's a second reason for developing a crowdsource workers' Bill of Rights, and I think that involves the next issue of a policy framework. The industry association monitors and tries to shape the policies that affect the entire industry. Right now, sitting in the in-basket of the United States Senate is a bill, 770. It's been introduced in several sessions running. I think this is the fourth version of it. It deals expressly with the issue of classifying workers as independent contractors, and it very much is looking to limit the ability of an employer to do that. Conceivably, it could easily limit the ability of a worker to work for a crowdsourcing firm. But more importantly, if it does get to a point where it has a hearing and it is in the public eye, it could bring some publicity that might be unwanted to the crowdsourcing industry, particularly if that industry does not have a clear sense of how it treats its workers. Now, right now, today, the likelihood of it coming to the public is somewhat slim. It has 4 co-sponsors and it's assigned to a committee that requires at least 20 before it gets a hearing. However, one of those co-sponsors, Senator Tom Harkin of Iowa, is also the chair of the committee that would hear the bill. And hence, if it's expedient, it might come to the front very quickly without a lot of warning. I think we all know that in the current point of the cycle of presidential elections, with primaries and caucuses coming up, such things can happen without much warning, and so we would like to be prepared. The trouble that this bill could cause the crowdsourcing industry is not so much in terms of regulation, although that can change at a moment. It's more an issue of the publicity. Right now, the crowdsourcing industry is working very hard to attract large Fortune 500 companies, to get them to use a crowdsource process as part of their business work. Such firms could easily lose interest in crowdsourcing, at least temporarily, if they perceived that the industry was under attack, if crowdsourcing could bring negative publicity to their firm. That kind of issue, the public policy issue, is the sort of thing that an industry association would track and monitor and weigh in if the time was necessary. There are other things as well. Industry associations often oversee road mapping processes. The Semiconductor Industry Association has been involved in this process for over 25 years. They have helped support the International Semiconductor Roadmap, which has kept the industry on the path of Moore's Law for the last 25 years. Moore's Law is not natural. It requires a great deal of thinking and planning. The roadmap process has done that thinking and planning and helped provide the individual decisions as well as the common infrastructure to keep us on Moore's Law. You can see things that the crowdsource industry might desire. A new platform, for example, standards for developing software and other things that would help the industry as a whole. It's probably down the line, but it's something an industry association would do. One of these associations would also collect statistics. If you look at Tech America, for example, one of its key roles is to gather from the industry statistics of their scale and scope so that all involved in that association can get a sense of how large the actual market is, what kind of field they're working in, and what they're contributing to it, as well as what opportunities are out there for them. And of course, an industry association deals with PR for the industry. It helps the industry present itself to the public and tries to define what that industry is. It's not really needed to date, but we're reaching a point where crowdsourcing is enough in the public eye that there will clearly be some benefits in doing that. The time is right for this group. It's time to really start thinking about taking the first steps to building that association. I would suspect that there will likely be a CrowdConf 12, one a year from now. But by that point, we might see it starting to transfer to an industry-wide association that is held in common by all the companies that are involved in this field, that has a democratically elected board and a professional leader. In the meantime, I hope you do make it to Crowd Conference 11. I'm going to be there. I look forward to meeting you and seeing what you're up to. I'm hoping to have a chance to talk with many, many members of the industry. In the meantime, this is David Allen Grier, broadcasting from the Capitol Hill studios of the Daily Crowdsource. The music we have is from the Music Alley. We thank them for the opportunity to use this material. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.